I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset podcast. I'm your host VJ Hamilton. I'm a nutritionist, scientist and expert in autoimmune disease, and today we're going to be talking about ferritin and hair loss, because if you have looked into hair loss in any way or if you are living with alopecia, then I am sure you have thought about ferritin. And that's why we are diving into this topic today, because it creates an extraordinary amount of confusion and frustration. And I know a lot of my clients will be focused on ferritin because they have spoken to people in their community or read articles about ferritin, and you've probably heard people say, just get your ferritin above 70 and the hair will grow back, or low ferritin is the only reason that you're losing your hair, or take some iron and I'm sure it will fix it and you'll feel better, or your hair will grow back. And it really does sound simple, doesn't it? And it was one of the things that I looked into myself when I was living with alopecia areata. And my ferritin, to be honest, was very, very low. So it is certainly a factor. But like most things in autoimmunity and alopecia, nothing is that reductive. And today I want to unpack the actual science, the context, and the root causes behind ferritin, why it drops, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and why supplementing iron can absolutely be the wrong move for certain people. We'll talk about hepcidin, infections, parasites, coeliac disease, nutrient cofactors, chronic inflammation, and autoimmune patterns, and how all of this shapes hair health and can lead to hair loss as well. And at the end, I want to share something special because I am offering you to join the Root Reset Circle this month. Anybody who joins this month will be getting a 25% discount. So we'll talk more about that at the end. Let's get started because I want to go through this and make sure that you have clarity. We go through any nuances that there is around ferritin, and just so you are more informed and you can make better decisions around it as well. So let's talk about what ferritin actually measures, and let's start with the basics, because ferritin is a storage protein for iron. So picture it as a protective vault. Iron is locked away safely inside ferritin until your body needs it. And here is the bit that nobody tells you, is that ferritin is not the same as usable iron. So a lot of people say to me, my iron is low, when they mean that their ferritin is low. And that's why it's important to get your test results and have a look through them yourself, because you have either been told that everything is fine and perhaps there is more that you can observe from those test results, especially if you are experiencing hair loss or you're not feeling great. Also, if your ferritin is low, then there might be other factors to consider as well. So it's not the same as usable iron. You can have ferritin actually that looks normal, even high, and still be functionally iron deficient. And that is because ferritin is an acute phase reactant, which means that it goes up when your body is inflamed. So it's actually a marker that I will look at to help me determine if my client is inflamed. And I see that a lot with clients who have a lot of inflammation. They might have arthritis, skin issues, and the ferritin will be high, but not because they have a lot of iron. It's actually because their body is storing a lot of iron. And this is why I always say ferritin is only one sentence in an extremely long story. And for hair, iron matters because ferritin helps fuel the hair follicles' incredible energy demanding growth cycle, but it is only one factor among many. So if your ferritin is very low, yes, I expect that is very relevant. But if your ferritin looks fine, that doesn't automatically give you the all clear, especially if you have inflammation or if autoimmunity is part of your symptoms. So let's talk about hepcidin, which is often the missing piece in hair loss and low ferritin. And hepcidin is the hormone that is produced by your liver and functions as a master regulator of iron absorption. So when hepcidin is high, your body blocks iron from being absorbed in the gut and actually traps stored iron inside ferritin so it can't be used. So you might be asking, well, why would your body actually do that? And it's because it's a protective mechanism against infection and inflammation. So hepcidin rises when you have autoimmune inflammation, you might have chronic stress, you might be fighting an infection, you might have gut dysbiosis or a parasite present, you might even have an underlying viral reactivation, which I see a lot with my clients. Often they will have been exposed to many viruses and then they start to get symptoms or hair loss. And this can be an underlying mechanism for that. It might be that you're consuming a lot of processed foods or alcohol, or you're just not sleeping well. In other words, hepcidin might be the reason why you can take iron supplements and still remain iron deficient. And this is why supplementing iron doesn't solve the root problem for so many people. So let's talk about why other markers matter just as much as ferritin, because ferritin does not give you the full picture of your iron status. You should not just look at ferritin in isolation. Other markers matter just as much, and I'll be honest, sometimes even more. And these include serum iron, transferrin saturation, there's something called total iron binding capacity, your hemoglobin, your MCV, which will give you an indication of the size of your red blood cells. And when it comes to inflammation, you can also look at CRP, C-reactive protein, and ESR. And those are the markers that I would be looking at in your test result, as well as ferritin, just so you have more information. And when I'm working with clients, I want to see all of their test results rather than just focusing on one marker, because this combination can tell you, are you actually absorbing the iron? Are you able to transport it properly around your body? Are you able to use it at the cellular level? Are you inflamed? And that could potentially be causing an iron metabolism issue. Is your iron getting trapped as ferritin? And is your body prioritizing essential organs over your hair follicles? Because remember, hair is not a necessity. I mean, it is in our culture and our daily life. That's how we view it. But the truth is, your body knows that other things going on in the body will be prioritized first. And that is why we need to make sure that we have the full picture when it comes to your health, especially if you're experiencing hair loss and alopecia, rather than just this one biomarker. And let's talk about the link with celiac disease, because I've seen this time and time again with my clients. They will come to me, they have had low ferritin for a long time, and their ferritin levels are just not going up no matter what they do. And this could be because they have undiagnosed celiac disease or a gluten-driven inflammation. And I'm pretty sure when it comes to my own health, this was a massive factor, because I had other symptoms. Like I used to get mouth ulcers, I had low ferritin, I had low iron status. And the reason that can occur if you have gluten-driven inflammation or celiac disease, it can affect your gut lining. So it can cause villus atrophy, which reduces iron absorption in the gut. It can cause chronic intestinal inflammation, which raises hepcidin, and as we said earlier, that can actually block iron absorption. It can cause the immune system to become dysregulated, and it can cause this Th1 dominant environment. And there is this Th1 and Th2 response in the body, which I'll talk about on another podcast episode, because it is a fascinating concept around autoimmune disease. And some people will be more Th1 dominant, which is the arm of the immune system which will focus on viruses and bacteria. And then we have this Th2 dominance, which focuses more on allergies and parasites. And when those activities become imbalanced, that can actually be the tipping point for autoimmunity, and different autoimmune diseases affected in different ways. But we know that celiac disease can impact ferritin in that way. And it can also mean that you are not absorbing some key cofactors when it comes to iron metabolism, like B12, like folate, zinc, and vitamin A, which can all be depleted. So even with a gluten-free diet, intestinal healing takes time. I saw that myself. I used to just dabble a bit with gluten and just think that that was fine. And that is why I just continue to have these cycles of hair loss. But when I just decided, no, I'm just not going to eat gluten at all anymore, that's when I have had hair regrowth and I haven't had any symptoms of hair loss for over 10 years. Now, I have done lots of other things as well, but I did make that commitment. And I remember the first time we went back to Italy after not eating gluten for a very long time. And again, I would be dabbling before and maybe go to Italy and eat a pizza and have some pasta. You know, the last couple of times I've been to Italy, I mean, I love Italy. And that's why I've been so many times. But I just decided, no, I'm not going to have any gluten. And to be honest, I'm quite surprised now the amount of gluten-free pasta that they have available in Italy, which is great because I love pasta. And it just means that I feel like I can still get involved in the culture there, but I don't have to have gluten. And the reason why even small exposures of gluten, especially if you have celiac disease, can be an issue is that it will keep destroying and targeting that gut barrier, which means that you are not going to be able to absorb those nutrients. But if you give it up for a long period of time and you're patient with it, then that gut barrier can start to heal and you can start absorbing those nutrients again. If you are at a point where your ferritin just isn't increasing, then it might be worth doing some celiac screening or doing, say, a stool test like the GI effects that I run in my clinic, to understand whether this might be a factor for you and understand whether there is any inflammation present or issues with absorption in the gut. Now onto a big one that almost no doctors screen for, and that's parasites and chronic infections. And these are major and often overlooked drivers of low ferritin. And again, you might be asking, well, why is that the case? And that's because these pathogens actually need iron. And your body, in its wisdom, tries to starve them by raising that hormone, hepcidin. It locks iron inside ferritin. It can reduce the gut absorption and decrease extracellular iron availability, which means that you don't have iron available either. This is what we call nutritional immunity. And it's the body's ancient survival response to getting these types of infections. We're almost starving them. So if you have blastocystis, hookworm, H. pylori, even candida and chronic viruses like Epstein-Barr virus or chronic Lyme, then this might be the reason that your ferritin is being affected. And you might, again, see this as your ferritin never rising. And what I've found with clients is when we've worked on the underlying infection, either the chronic viral infection or worked on imbalances in their gut or done a parasite protocol, suddenly their ferritin is going up even without taking iron because the infections are lower. So they have more iron available to them and their body goes out of this survival mode. And this is why testing can really help. Doing that stool test, SIBO can be a factor in this as well, and you can do SIBO breath testing. And there are also some viral panels that you can run to see whether chronic viruses or a high viral load in the body might be impacting this. Because if iron is low due to an infection, supplementing iron can actually make symptoms worse by feeding the pathogen load. And that is one thing I'm always very conscious of. I know if my client has low iron or very low ferritin, then we do need to think about how can we increase the levels. And you do have to get to a fine balance between making sure that they are getting some iron-rich food, but also we don't want to be feeding the pathogens. And sometimes it's really worth cleansing and going through a detox protocol to be able to lower the microbial load in the body and then start to think about how do you increase iron absorption and increase iron in the diet and potentially supplementation. And this is actually why so many people can feel worse when they take iron than when they aren't taking it. So let's talk about iron supplementation because I think it's important. So let me say this clearly. Iron supplements are not inherently bad, There are cases like true iron deficiency anemia where they're actually needed and are life-saving. Here's why iron isn't always appropriate, because if ferritin is low because of inflammation, iron won't solve the problem. If ferritin is low because of an infection, again, iron can actually exacerbate the symptoms. If gut health is compromised, iron can trigger constipation, it can cause cramping, nausea, and dysbiosis. And if hepcidin is high, you simply won't absorb the iron supplement anyway. And if your cofactors are low, like I mentioned, like the B12, vitamin A, low in so many of my clients, because it's actually quite hard to get enough vitamin A, especially the vitamin A that your body can use from products like cod liver oil, your body can't actually utilize the iron even if you are taking it. Because iron metabolism requires copper, it requires magnesium, folate, vitamin C, vitamin B6, zinc, vitamin A. It also requires a well-functioning gut and a regulated immune system. And if these aren't in place, iron supplementation becomes an expensive, miserable, and often futile exercise. And this is why in my practice, we always ask why. Why is ferritin low? What's driving it? What's interfering with utilisation? And then we correct that at the root rather than just focusing on getting the iron levels up. And just to make this really practical, let's talk about the symptoms that most people experience when iron supplementation isn't the right approach. And you can talk to your doctor about this as well, because the body will usually tell you quite loudly if iron supplementation isn't right for you. So one of the symptoms that people can have is very dark or black stool, and this can happen because unabsorbed iron oxidizes in the gut, and it's certainly not dangerous in itself, but it usually means the dose is too high or your absorption is poor, and that can often be due to high hepcidin or an underlying inflammation. It might cause, as I mentioned, upset stomach or cramping, and iron is quite irritating in the gastrointestinal lining, especially when there's existing gut inflammation or SIBO or IBS or low stomach acid. It can also cause constipation or bloating, and oral iron can slow motility. So if you already are constipated, it might not be the thing for you, and it can disrupt the gut microbiome, particularly ferrous sulfate. I find that's a particular issue for clients. And there is a product I like by Designs for Health called Ferrishell, which seems to be a bit more gentle on the gut. Some people will find that they feel nauseous after taking iron, which might be a sign that the gut is struggling to tolerate the form or the dose. You might experience increased fatigue or headaches, and this can indicate that iron is feeding an underlying infection or actually adding to oxidative stress rather than supporting energy production. Because I know a lot of the time we're thinking about iron when we're fatigued, but if we feel more fatigued from taking iron, then that might be something to observe and think about. And it can also worsen skin issues or cause more flares, particularly in people with eczema, acne, or histamine-driven issues, again linked to that oxidative load and dysbiosis. So these symptoms don't automatically mean iron is bad, because iron isn't bad, I'm not saying that, but they do suggest that your body isn't equipped to use it effectively. Potentially yet, you might be able to tolerate it more in the future. And this is why the root cause approach matters so much more than simply taking more iron or pushing ferritin higher. So let's look at it from a hair loss perspective, because here's what I would like you to know. If you have alopecia or you're experiencing hair shedding, thinning, or breakage, and it's that low ferritin may contribute to hair loss. There is lots of research to support that, but it is rarely the cause. It's one contributor in a deeply interconnected system. Ferritin does support the hair matrix cell division. It helps with energy production. It helps with oxygenation at the hair follicle. It can support keratin synthesis. And it is vital for thyroid hormone utilization, which is critical for the hair growth cycle. But if your immune system is attacking the follicles, or your stress response is dysregulated, your gut is inflamed, your androgens, which can relate to your sex hormones, are unstable, you're dealing with chronic viral reactivation, which we know can happen after having COVID, or your sleep is fragmented, then ferritin correction alone will not give you the regrowth that you're looking for. And I hope it does, but it often doesn't, because it is a foundational pillar, but it is not the whole picture. And this is why So many people spend years chasing that ferritin number and making no progress because we're not diving deeper into our health. I had to do this as well. I spent years going through cycles of growth and hair loss. I almost knew some things that would work for me, but it just got to a point that I thought that was how I was going to live my life. And I'm so glad I decided to dig deeper and look into functional testing, find out where there were imbalances in my body. And working on those has helped me so much more than just focusing on taking iron. And I've been there. I took iron, especially in my 20s. I was living with chronic fatigue. I thought it would help. And to be honest, it didn't really make much difference. And it certainly didn't raise my ferritin levels. And the other thing to think about is blood loss as well, because that can cause low iron. So if you are having a very heavy menstrual cycle, then that can certainly lower your levels. And again, it's actually thinking about why are you having such a heavy menstrual cycle and addressing that, not just hormonally, but thinking about the underlying issues. Like, is there something going on with your thyroid hormones? Have you got underlying inflammation which is causing this? Maybe you have endometriosis. This could all be a factor, and we can do so much to help improve our iron levels. But if we're losing that much blood every month, then it is going to be difficult. So when I work with clients, we look at ferritin as a signal, not a standalone solution. And for sustainable hair recovery and regrowth, we're looking at the gut, we're looking at how balanced their immune system is, whether there's any infections, how strong detoxification is, if there's any hormonal imbalances, is their nervous system dysregulated, how is their sleep, are they producing energy at the cellular level? Do they feel safe emotionally, or is there any past trauma that needs to be worked on? Are there any nutrient needs? Often there are, most of the time, and most of the clients that I work with, they're just not eating enough of the right food. And this can take time. It took me time to be making every meal with lots of nutrient dense foods and making sure that I don't have to think about it too much. And I know when you're first getting started, I know when I was first getting started, I was just making a new recipe 1 week at a time, and I would try a few different things with lunch and just have a structure, have a protein, have some type of like gluten-free grains or legumes, have some salad, making sure I'm having my smoothie. And again, it would just be like a little formula that I had for each thing. That's how I got started. Now I have recipes that I know very well, and I find it easy to go and make them, and I have certain lunches that I have. But really thinking about every meal of how can I make sure I'm getting the nutrients I need in this meal, and then which supplements do I have in my drawer available to me? Because last year I ended up having the flu, and I had got a bit complacent, I think, with my health, and I didn't have vitamin C in my cupboard. I didn't have NAC. I didn't have all of these nutrients which I knew would support my immune system. So I have like a drawer with my supplements in, so when I need them I will take them. And it's understanding what supplements your body needs. I know when I get ill what I need. I know when my energy feels depleted, the nutrients that are going to make me feel better. And it's not always the case, but there are lots of foods that I know make me feel better, those nourishing, slow-cooked meals that I make in my Instant Pot. When I have those and I'm feeling tired or worn out, they just really help me. And, when I was training for the half marathon earlier in the year, eating lots of those slow-cooked meals, because that's what makes me feel good. And that's where I would love everybody to get to, that this is just naturally weaved into your life, that you don't feel that it's a big weight on you having to think about what you're putting in every meal and how you're living your life. It just becomes a natural part of the way you're living. And honestly, if I look back to 2013 or 2012 thinking that I would get to this point, I really honestly didn't. And I've just taken it a step at a time, and even starting to make my own lunch rather than always going for a convenient option. Even doing that and starting there made a huge difference. Then taking a smoothie into work, which had lots and lots of nutrients in it, putting protein in it, having that with a boiled, I used to have 2 boiled eggs in a morning with a piece of toast, and then I'd take my smoothie and I'd have that after my exercise class. And those kind of things just make such a big difference. So give it a try, because when you address these underlying issues, your ferritin will probably rise naturally. I know mine has. My ferritin now is the highest it's ever been. And this is really when transformation happens. And I honestly believe that I've been able to do longer runs. I've been able to do more exercise because my ferritin is at a much healthier level. So yeah, I am thinking about ferritin as a standalone marker, but it's other things as well. But ferritin to me is a symptom rather than the root cause. And that's how we should view it. So if you feel like you've been stuck in this confusion around ferritin, if your levels don't seem to be rising, if you're losing hair and the shedding just isn't stopping, or if you've tried iron supplementation and you felt worse and you just don't know what's going on, then know that it's not your fault. It's not that you're missing something obvious. It's that you probably just need to dig a bit deeper to understand your own body, understand what might be affecting it, having a look at your test results, thinking about your gut health, all the things that we cover on this podcast. And I will be sharing more podcast episodes with you to discuss some of these areas. And if you would like to request a subject matter for me to talk about on this podcast, feel free to get in touch. I will be doing these longer form episodes more regularly. I'm excited to be getting some new guests on the podcast. And again, if you have any guests that you would like me to interview on the podcast, then again, you can just pop over to my Instagram account at the Autoimmune Reset and just provide your recommendations over there or any feedback that you have. And you can also review the podcast, which is always helpful, and it just helps to get the podcast out there to more people. I really love sharing information. I do this as much as I can, and I really do want to make it a focus for next year, just so that you have this resource and that you can start moving forward with your health, just that step at a time, and just have the knowledge and awareness around these matters as well. I also have the Root Reset Circle, which is a new membership that I have. And every week we have live sessions where I answer your questions. I talk through any confusion that you have around alopecia or hair loss. It is for people who are going through hair loss and alopecia, and also for parents who have children with alopecia. And I've always wanted to have this membership where we can all come together, all learn from each other, and you can just ask me any questions, because it's such a confusing world out there, and it's particularly confusing when it comes to our health. There's so many recommendations, and I get questions about this all the time. Should I be taking collagen? I've seen this other new nutrient. Should I be taking that? What should I be eating? What shouldn't I be eating? And we go through all that on the calls, as well as just having some support and having somebody to talk to, because it's not easy, especially if you're just experiencing hair loss for the first time, or if you found that your child is experiencing hair loss. It just takes a lot out of you, and I understand what it's like and how it can really affect your confidence. You might not want to talk about it to anybody at the moment. I certainly didn't want to talk to anybody about it, but this is a safe space for you. So if you would like to join in December, I am offering 25% off the subscription price, and that discount will stay locked in as long as you remain a member of the circle. And, I just want to offer that to you in December. If you have any questions about that, just let me know. You can also head over to the Autoimmune Forum, because I'm sharing lots of information over there around autoimmune disease. And this month I'm sharing some festive recipes and ways to optimize your life and your health during this festive period. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, thank you for listening today. I'll be sharing the next episode next week. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.